Thank
Let's
you for
go.
joining us today, Renata.
My pleasure.
Renata, you are how would I describe you? A language specialist, a communication specialist, a intercultural training specialist. Is that fair?
Yep, I'll wear all those hats and I'll take it. Thank you. Yes.
I mean, tough. Do you have a favourite?
I think it's a collection of things that have developed over time, and it's hard to trace where it all started. And at the beginning, it didn't make a lot of sense. I just came across as somebody who doesn't know where her niche is, what she wants. But then in the end, it tends to dovetail just very beautifully and it comes together. So I'm not very keen on separating the things anymore, but bringing them together. This has worked best for me over the years.
Yeah, no, actually, I mean the term interculturalist is still somewhat of a newer term. And
Yep.
sometimes when you talk to others and say, I work in the field of, working across cultures or cross-cultural studies or cross-cultural communication, there's still a lot of misunderstanding around to what that actually entails. How do you how do you best sell yourself or your services or help people just understand what you do?
Well, I used to be an employee for most of my life, and it was only after moving to the United States. My husband was one of those expat transferees, and I was the expat partner. I saw an opportunity to start my own business, and I did. Well, that was more than, I don't know, 15 years ago. And so, in the humble beginnings of all that enterprise, I thought I need some marketing advice or how do I brand myself? How do I sell myself? Because most of us, teachers, trainers, coaches, are not very good at selling ourselves. So, we need some assistance with that. And I attended a workshop where they said, "So what do you do, Renata?" And I had a whole list of, "Oh, I do this and I do that," and yada, 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 yada. And the trainer said, "That's awful. You need to come up with a slogan. You need to make up your mind who you are. Are you fish or meat?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, no, I don't want to be fish or meat. I want to be everything." And then, anyway, that's how the whole discussion started. But something good came off it. I developed a slogan, which is I help people communicate successfully in their own language, in a foreign language, and across cultures. Because I felt it encompasses everything I do. And it forced me to separate what I do into three very concrete categories, which is language training, intercultural training, and communication skills coaching. And so whatever I do, I can pack it into one of the three areas. And it sounds good to most people out there to understand what I actually do.
Wonderful. Wish I was that concise, Nick.
Well, one thing I hear there, I love it, is this marketing exercise is
Yeah.
also kind of an identity exercise.
Branding, it was a branding event that I attended at the time and it was
Oh,
very useful.
so useful. I almost want to get some coaching right now. I feel something similar. This idea of, hey, I'm an interculturalist. I've taught English to future English teachers abroad, outside the United States. I've welcomed international students and others to the United States. But I love this exercise of saying, hey, here's these three things I do. I love that. Is there or like I guess as you do that as branding, who does that connect most with? Do people pick on one of those threads and say, hey, that's where I am right now? Or do people come with sort of a fully formed need?
Well,
Tell me
this
more.
is still it's still development in process. Nothing
Hmm.
is ever completed. I still get these questions like, okay, I get the language teacher. That's the easiest for people to understand. I want to learn a foreign language. I need to pass a test. So you're a language teacher. Teach me. That's the one thing people really understand the best. Whereas the other two areas, I often get the question, so what exactly does an intercultural trainer do? And then I
Hmm.
say, well, I help people when they relocate to other countries like expats. That's a good keyword, expat. That people go like, oh, yeah, I know what an expat is. Oh, relocating. Oh, you're one of those, sort of. But then I say, I also work with teams who are kind of diverse teams, international teams, globally dispersed. There are other layers of culture other than national culture. And I just help them bridge cultural differences. And that gets a little more vague than for other people. They're like, oh, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'm pretty sure there's a need for that in this world. but they still don't know what it is until they've experienced it themselves. But the most vague area I often have to explain is a communication skills coach. What on earth does a communication skills coach do? So I really need to give examples, and I say, well, what I do the most that falls into that category is public speaking coaching, or how to communicate successfully with others in a variety of situations in business, like giving and receiving feedback, giving presentations, participating in meetings, or in your personal life. You have to give somebody feedback. You have to communicate with your neighbor, and it never seems to work somehow. What could be the reasons? That's what a communication skills coach does. So, through examples and applications, what they can use it for in their life, that when it becomes clearer to others. But still, I do get a lot of questions about it.
Yeah. So if I'm about to give a keynote, I'm going to do a 45-minute talk. I'm a subject matter expert, but I am talking to a new audience, or I'm
Hmm.
introducing myself as leadership in a new setting or team. That's when I call Renata.
Yeah, you'd be a perfect client for me in that setting. Yes. Of
Uh,
course, I
Where
would ask
where
you
would
a
I
lot of
start?
questions and drill a
Yeah,
little
what are
deeper.
questions people wouldn't already know? Because I'm thinking like, well, what's my basic hook? What's my story?
Mm.
How do I talk into a microphone and be heard? I might even be
Mm,
asking the wrong questions. What are the right questions to be asking when I'm about to do that big keynote?
Well, most people who come to me about public speaking
Hmm.
coaching, they say, don't get me wrong, I'm a good speaker. I can really communicate really well with others. So they first of all pat themselves on the shoulder, feeling a little guilty that they need help. And they say, but I'm not so used to speaking to a large audience. And I realize this is what a lot of people are super afraid of: stage
Hmm.
fright, freezing, standing there on the podium, or looking into all those faces of people with expectations they might not be able to meet. They're beating themselves up over it. The sheer thought of it paralyzes them.
Yeah.
So that's often one of the requests I get, and I help them to become not a full blown entertainer, but to manage it well and to actually enjoy it.
And I guess that's just exacerbated or magnified if you are delivering in either a second language or in a
Of
secondary culture
course.
to where you was originally from.
Yeah, even if it's in your native language, but you're presenting to an international audience, and let's say you're doing it in English, but you know that 70% of your audience are non-native speakers of English. A lot of people say, how can I articulate my speech so that it's very intelligible to that international audience? I sometimes work with people who are already quite aware of issues that might come up, or is this appropriate, or should I say it a different way? Does that come across as too American or too whatever, wherever the person is from? Some people are incredibly aware already and still need some help, some tweaking and adjusting, whereas other people are not aware at all. And they say, this is my presentation, and this is where I'm going to give the presentation. This is my audience. Can you just tell me if it's all right? And I'm like, goodness me, how many hours are you willing to invest in this? So some people have come quite a long way, and I'm surprised that with that level of awareness, they're still seeking coaching or advice. And that just speaks to them, really, the constant need to make sure I'm doing it right, the constant process of tweaking and adjusting, and that's what we should be going through. Whereas others who have no clue whatsoever, they might actually feel really good about their presentation, and that's astonishing.
You mentioned obviously you've been doing this for say over 15 years just as your own
As the
business as it
owner
were.
of my own business,
Yeah.
but before that, I mean, it goes way back.
So what would you say has changed the most in terms of the people you work with from say 20 years ago to sort of like now? Is it because I'm thinking, things like language skills and working with people and how technology's moved on, that must have changed a lot. And I'm guessing, people that also the people that are migrating or moving across cultures or coming for work purposes. I mean, my work
Yeah.
now is certainly a lot different to how it was.
I mean, the most significant thing I've noticed is technology, I guess. I do remember a time when a computer was a fancy thing in only one room, not accessible to everyone. And oh my God, you had a laptop and a PowerPoint presentation, a projector. Boy, yay, you were the master of it all. That was advanced technology, and then people were so used to getting paper handouts, reading books, and it's we've really totally moved on to AI improved online self-paced learning tools, and who knows what. I mean, even when we talk about dictionaries, I remember back good old days, every language training required that they buy a book and a dictionary, and they had like a little booklet to write in that was for their own notes. Nobody had a laptop. Nobody use technology or teaching methodologies, let's say. Yes, most of them have kind of stayed the same over time, but they have still, I feel like things have changed in a way that we're required to do a lot more interactive teaching, training, and coaching these days. I think that's the most significant thing that has changed apart from technology. Back in the days, you would totally get away with opening a book, reading from the book. The students would take notes. There was no interaction, not much speaking, and then you would hand them a written test and grade the test, and that was it. If you tried to do language training that way these days, yeah, you'd get complaints, and they would tell you to up your game, step up to the plate of interactive teaching, encourage active, proactive participation, and have online homework. And it would be totally different these days. And it's the same with intercultural training. I think the first intercultural training I ever did was heavily based on written materials. Everybody had a handout. They could
Mhm.
take that handout home and study. We were heavily focused on what I would actually consider a stereotype today. This is how the French are, and this is how the Italians are, and this is how the British are. And, this is how the Americans are, and this is what the Chinese do. Beware of that. It's very different, And then you had your charts and your scales and your intercultural dimensions, and you would kind of give a lecture on Hofstede and Trompenaars and Richard T. Lewis, and people would take notes, and they would be highly academically educated in the intercultural field, and that was it. But how practical is it actually? Can they act on it when they actually have that intercultural meeting or when they give a presentation to a foreign audience? I think these days we focus a lot more on actual interaction, putting it into practice, um, situational approach. I think that has changed quite a bit since back in the days.
I hear you on the way it used to be. I still remember being handed my very thick, to me, completely unusable at first, Chinese dictionary when I got to China. And I had to learn, okay, how is a Chinese dictionary organized? How does this writing system work in the first place? It doesn't have the Roman alphabet like my language. So it's sort of like alphabetical. Okay, well, how would we organize if we didn't? And then the pinyin chart. I don't know if either of you have
Yeah,
ever experienced the pinyin chart with the long
I've
stick
seen it.
and dozens and dozens of sound combinations, and you just slap down the thing, and yeah, quite interesting. But I was right on that edge of the blend, Renata, where I was drilled in that stuff. But then we also had a fun activity. I still remember it, practicing directions. And one of us would give directions to another student and have them walk around the room. And we try to like make this, we'd like make our colleagues like bump into each other, or like walk them into a wall over and over again. Or sometimes we would try to achieve the objective of getting them over to the printer to grab the paper or whatever. But they could only do what we told them to do. So we had to encode it. They had to decode it. We had to do that in a timely way so they wouldn't run into each other. So it's fun to think about those changes. Are there challenges, I guess, as you start getting people more interactive? Are there new challenges that come from trying to get people interacting? Is that working for everybody?
I think the challenges haven't changed. That's the
Yeah.
one thing I've noticed because people haven't
Hmm.
really changed and their different preferences. So, out of a group of 10, let's say, you will always have um, a certain percentage of them who love written tests and filling out multiple choice questions. And they will love to do a writing exercise, let's say, whereas others feel they want to just speak up and present, do something interactive, like walk around the room, give directions. That would suit them much more than writing it down. And so we have the same, we still have the same thing. You will always have people who ask for written documentation. I still get people who sign up for intercultural training and they say, well, can you just send me the manual? I really don't have time for those meetings. And I'm like, well, that's not really what your employer wants you to do. That usually makes them go like, okay, fine. And I'm like, oh, please let me convince this person that this is actually fun and useful and so on. But when they first start out, they often they feel inclined to just read the manual and move on. So I think what hasn't changed is the basic attitude people have towards training. And that was the case back in the days, half a century ago, and it's still the case today. You will run into people who have certain preferences, and you still have to get adjusted to a learner's preference on how they want to learn and interact with you, which is easy when you do one-on-one and terribly difficult when you have a group of people.
I mean, I'm guessing you have a lot of pressure to deliver a lot of this training virtually as opposed to in person. Is that fair?
To be honest, I love working online. What you see behind me, even partially, is what I call my office, my Zoom office. I live on Zoom or any other platform, really. I use other platforms too. I've gotten really used to it. I appreciate how effective it is, how I can be in my own space and my client can be in their own space,
Do you
how
think you
we
get
can.
a more authentic version of them when they are in their own personal space? Are they more open than you say, obviously being in like a training room, or do you know?
I would say so, because they're often in their own office, nobody else is around, or if they work in a large cubicle, next to cubicle kind of space, or in a large industrial facility environment, it's loud and lots of people around. They have these kind of little rooms where you can sound with a soundproof door, and they can rent one of those little conference rooms. I love that when they have that in companies. And then they just close the door, say, okay, now we can talk. And then you kind of feel like they start relaxing. Now nobody can hear me. We're alone, but I'm not sitting next to them. They would probably be a lot more uncomfortable. You've had to squeeze next to them in that little cubicle. I've been in those teeny tiny workspaces in person many years ago, and people are like, okay, that's a little too close for comfort. And I felt the same. Like, I don't need to smell your breath and your cologne, you know? So being in your own space physically, but being very close visibly, and the way we talk, it's like I'm sitting next to you, but you're in your own space. You're physically protected. You're in your own area. And you can have it as cold or as warm as you like it in your room. You can wear whatever you want. You can even bring your lunch and you have a drink. And, people feel very comfortable when they settle in, and then we start talking. And I really benefit from that. And I think that's a real advantage of online training and coaching and language teaching as well, that people can take me with them wherever they go, and then go into a very comfortable space and enjoy the one-on-one time with me. And even with groups, it works quite well. Even though with groups, I have to say, I've had a group, I could hardly see anyone because there was a camera somewhere far away, and it showed the whole room. And then, like, far away, those little dots, these were the participants. And then there was one person who was walking around with a microphone when somebody had something to say. So I would hardly see them, but they would see me apparently on the big screen. And it was not so great. So with groups, I think there is something about the dynamic of the trainer being in the room, walking around and all that. But as soon as you do one-on-one, I think online is fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
key there, isn't it? The one-on-one element. So that big group room with a remote camera sounded very difficult.
There's a distinction between a one-on-one conversation in person, talking to a big room in person, and then talking into a camera alone in your own space to a big room. I just want to say, since I've experienced that, I can just say those are like huge qualitative leaps in sort of maybe comfort or skill or something. But I know the weirdness of talking directly into a camera with no one behind it. What an odd thing. No facial feedback, any of that. It's like, oh boy,
Actually, I don't mind at all.
you don't mind it.
It's no, not at all. I think it's also something I tell my clients when I
Hmm.
prepare them for situations like that. Like there's the lights on me, I can't even see the audience. I'm blinded by the lights, and how am I supposed to connect with the audience when I can't see their facial
Yeah.
reactions? And I always say, imagine them. Imagine who you're talking to, because you've spoken with people one on one before, so you have muscle memory of that in your brain. You absolutely do. Just imagine it. Imagine a very nice and, let's say, fruitful conversation you had with one, two, or three people and their facial reactions when they liked what you did. Just imagine that while you're speaking. And I try to use that when I record videos. I have a YouTube channel, so when I record videos for that, I'm basically talking to no one and everyone and whoever. I don't know who my audience is. So I just imagine the perfect person who might be interested in that and start speaking.
Yeah.
Is
Well, I
there
mean,
a little bit of
some of the perfect people interested in that are probably listening to this. So who is the perfect person for those YouTube videos? We wanted to ask you about the channel. Tell us what's going on there.
Well, remember my three categories that I
Hmm.
coined a while ago? So, language teaching, intercultural training, communication skills coaching. So, when I started my YouTube channel, I thought I should stay true to that. It should not go off my brand message in a way. I just called it something slightly different because all the videos I have made and I intend to make should fall into these three categories somehow. So I decided to call the first category intercultural communication expat life. So that's basically everything that has to do with my intercultural training part. And then, there's this very blurry, vague area of communication skills. So I thought I'd make it a bit more specific, and I called it job search and business skills across cultures. And then I still have my language training branch, and I just called it foreign language learning because I didn't want to be language specific. So I created those three categories, and whatever video I make, I put it in one of the three categories.
what are the languages you specialize in? Never asked.
I would consider both German and English my native languages. Go ahead, challenge me on that. Oh, I've had a couple of
You're
run-ins with
speaking with
people.
someone that's the least gifted linguist on the planet, I think.
Well, I think I'm okay to say that after so many years of communicating in those two languages, and even
Mhm.
having experienced them during childhood, teenage years, early adult years. So I've really been exposed to those two languages a lot, even though my English started out to be British English. And I
Nothing
had a
wrong with that.
lot of trouble with American English when I
Mm.
moved across the pond. And a lot of people say that I occasionally do pronounce one word or another in a way that Americans don't. And I don't care. That's the way how I speak. And with German, it's the same thing. In Germany, you really speak a dialect. And in addition to that, the official version of the language.
Mhm.
So it's very hard for me to not use dialectal words. So people would be able to trace where my dialect might be from. But those two languages, I really do consider them more or less my native language. So most of the language teaching or training that I do is for English and for German. Any proficiency level and test preparation. That's what a lot of people need. For school, for employment, international students, getting into universities in the US, that's something that happens a lot. They need to pass a TOEFL or an IELTS. That I get a lot. So these are my main two languages. I also speak French and Italian, but I'm a student myself, lifelong student, loving it. I really consider this my hobby, language learning, and I try to maintain and improve it whenever I can. So if somebody already is, let's say, at an intermediate level, French or Italian, I'd say, sorry, I can't help you because I'm not that much better than you are. And you might ask me a lot of questions I can't answer. You should hire a native speaker. But if somebody's just starting out, oh gosh, yeah, sure. I can teach them a lot. I can help them a lot. So I do also get the occasional French or Italian student. And of course, it comes with intercultural training. They see how the packages nicely dovetail and support
Yeah.
each other because, hey, why do you want to learn Italian, for example? And they're like, oh, because of this and this and that. And they give me a story and like, okay, have you ever noticed this and that? So we get talking about cultural differences and they realize that you cannot take apart language and culture. They come as a package, and so do the services I offer.
So you mentioned French, and I was going to ask this anyway before you mentioned French, but now, yes, we're good.
Okay.
Let's say I've got a week in France in 4 months. So in June, I'll be in France for a week.
Can I be
What do I
conversational
do?
by then? Yeah, that's my favorite question.
Well, okay. Now, when you say favorite question, it makes me not want to ask it.
Okay, ask another one then. Go ahead.
Can I be conversational by then, and how?
That is the same question. Well, I love this word conversational, and I love the word fluent because it couldn't be any more vague and is not measurable. So, you all know the acronym SMART for goals, right?
Mhm.
SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to you in a time frame. We all know that. So the question, can I be conversational by June, does not meet the criteria of a SMART goal. So we always have to make it a SMART goal. And we have to take certain conditions into consideration. So first of all, do you already speak a language such as Spanish, Italian, Portuguese? That would be my first question.
Does English qualify?
Unfortunately, no, it doesn't. It's
Oh,
not a Romance language. It's in Italic. Sorry, yeah, it's a English is actually a Germanic language, believe it or not. I love saying that. So it's a different language family, but any foreign language actually helps. You mentioned learning Chinese. Okay. Have you learned any other languages?
Ein bisschen Deutsch, but that was back in high school. And let's not talk about how long ago that was, but let's say
Right.
it's mostly faded.
Okay. So that means certain concepts of the language will come to you as a total surprise. For example, if I told you that French has a so-called formal and informal version of you. Now, if you were like, or if you had been a student of, let's say, Spanish or Italian before, even German helps, you get the concept. You're like, I know this from another language.
Yeah.
Whereas monolingual English speakers just don't get the concept. They also don't get the concept of verb conjugation because I go and you go and we go and they go. Yeah, he, she, goes has an S, but really, we can even drop it sometimes.
What is this, the
What?
conjugation Olympics? Come on.
Well, exactly. Who cares? So, do I really have to do this in the other language? People will still understand me if I don't, right? Okay, if you want to be a clown and make some money for entertaining the crowds with your miserable language skills, go ahead and do it. But then why are you learning if you're not intrinsically interested in intimately getting to know the language and the culture and embracing it for what it is? And part of French is that it has a formal and an informal version of you, and it conjugates verbs and it has articles. And yes, that's strange, I know. And that's why I'm saying, so if somebody has language learning experience and is maybe talented for language learning on top of that, this person can achieve a lot more in the same time than somebody who is monolingual, no language learning experience, and maybe not very gifted. And that's not something to be ashamed of. I always tell people you have strengths and weaknesses. And if this is not your strength, don't beat yourself up about it. Just accept it and see what is achievable for you. What is a really smart goal for you? And for some people, the smart goal of going to France in June might be to memorize 10 sentences that are useful. Like, excuse me, I don't speak French. Do you speak English? That, I would say, is the first sentence I would teach you, and I would make you memorize and say it 100 times until you can say it, because this will open doors for you in France. And maybe if that's the only thing you can do, that's fine, if that's your smart goal. But if you're a real language buff, we'll find more for you to do.
Okay,
In terms of bang for your buck, as it were,
yeah.
as the American term would go, do you think, just thinking about what you said there, do you think people overfixate when they're going somewhere that's not in their native language? They then, whether that be for a holiday or a medium to long-term relocation, they fixate on the language element, where realistically, getting back to your learn 10 phrases, they'd be better off kind of limited language and let it develop naturally, but actually throw themselves into the cultural understanding of the area sooner.
It depends on what type of communicator you are. I see that in a language learning class, for example. Some people will not speak until they get the grammar 100% right. Other people speak whatever comes out of their mouth. It is so horribly wrong, but I kind of get what they want. So for them, it's mission accomplished. So it depends on what type of communicator you are. Are you primarily focused on communicating and getting the message across, building relationships, bonding with people, taking it with a pinch of salt and with a smile and with humor, that you sound awful and my grammar is off, and you keep saying it 100 times and the other person finally gives in and says, yeah, whatever, you're trying, I love you, or are you the perfectionist? Are you so worried to come across as stupid when you make a grammar mistake because you feel that having to communicate in a foreign language and not getting it right might reflect badly on your intelligence? If you're one of those, you will not speak for a very long time, and you're probably better off taking a slightly different approach. So I need to understand what type of communicator you are to help you, because it's not a one fits all. Or what I saw on a product just recently, it always used to say one fits all on certain items you can buy, right? I just recently saw one fits most, and I found this quite interesting. We've moved on from one fits all to one fits most, but still, in language and in the cultural training, there's not even a one fits most. It's down to the individual person, what type of learner you are, what preferences you have, what type of communicator you are. And this is what makes those group courses so incredibly difficult.
I remember where I'm kind of thinking here is obviously I remember you speaking, obviously delivering a culture chat where you talked about the virtues of small talk and of how that kind of, really can kind of, what I took away from that, make or break how successful maybe a transition or an experience kind of is. Would that be fair?
So, sorry for asking. The question here is what?
Well, in terms of, I'm just going back to it, obviously, in terms of learning what one then learns and the confidence in then speaking, and then some people wishing to be extremely knowledgeable on the language before they even try to interact. But then
you mean,
I think,
would it hamper my ability to have small talk if I were one of those people who are hesitant when they don't know grammar, or they're not entirely sure it's correct what they say? Yeah, it would totally. But yes, those people experience a lot more obstacles in communication, also in small talk situations, whereas the, let's say, avid communicator we talked about, who doesn't care about grammar mistakes and who talks with hands and feet and face and body language to get the point across, well, yes, that person is most likely going to be a lot more successful in at least attempting small talk. But then you also have to see who your audience is. Not everybody is in love with the, say, oh, let's give it a try, trial and error. And if I fail, I'll get back in the saddle and try again. Not everybody's comfortable with that attitude. So in some cultures, people might find it a bit...
That's not a surefire route to having a great cross-cultural experience.
I'd say these people are still more successful overall. I guess they just force others, let's say, to communicate with them. And in the end, they might just get what they want. I'm just saying the approach is not equally popular across cultures. That's what it is.
Is there a noticeable divergence between, again, I don't want to get down that route of stereotypes, but between kind of certain cultures that may lean strongly one side to the other in terms of approach?
Well, we have cultures where children in school already learn that the spoken word is powerful and you should consider it before saying it. Words have impact. Words can hurt like a sword. Words can soothe like oil. Words are art. And if you feel the word is worthy of exiting your mouth, then speak. And if not, don't speak. So if that's kind of where you come from, you can imagine this person speaks a lot less than somebody coming from a culture where children in school learn, speak up whenever you have something to say. Don't be so quiet. Don't be shy. Don't leave the wrong impression, because being quiet, not being the squeaky wheel, means you're not motivated, you're not dynamic, you're not participating, you're lazy, you're incompetent. So speak up and do some self-promotion and, be proactive and interactive. Go for it. Otherwise, people get the wrong impression of you. Imagine we have those two people coming from vastly different cultures. They will take a very different approach to small talk, to starting a conversation, and also to how fast conversation is, like turn taking. Do we overlap? I speak, you speak, I speak, you speak, boom, 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 boom. It's like ping pong, back and forth. And then if you come from a culture where silence is appreciated and necessary in conversation, and unless there is a 3 to 5 second gap, you don't speak, or you need time for processing what was said, and you need to go like, I know how you're getting nervous while I'm doing this, But now I answer and you're like, oh, thank goodness she finally said something. So this is exactly where small talk and other types of conversation go wrong, when you have different expectations about how much silence is necessary, how many words need to be spoken, how long you have to mull over the words you will speak because you're considering your words' impact, or if it's just about volume and speed and interaction and being proactive. I think this is where the most miscommunication kind of happens.
How do you have that conversation in a team about expectations? A lot of people are hearing this for the first time. Frankly, that turn taking is a thing that's been studied, and there's ways of talking about it and strategies for crossing different turn taking styles. It's like, wow, how do I bring that up at work? How do I bring that up with my boss
Yeah.
or a new functional team that's just been brought together? Do you have tips for us in that situation?
Well, if it's between two people, well, we're not talking team. This is down to an individual level. If it's just the boss with one individual on the team and that's the only person the boss has trouble communicating with, we're probably down to talking to the two of them and not the entire team. But if there's a lot of misunderstanding on different levels and nobody really knows why it happens, because they kind of actually like each other, but then things always go wrong and we don't know why. Well, the first thing I would ask, and I do ask, is, so do you actually have a code of conduct? How would you describe your corporate culture? And I want to see if that is already in place. Larger corporations will have something like corporate culture, a vision, mission statement, a code of conduct. Individual teams might have their own written rules, like on our team, these are, I don't know, the 5 golden rules or whatever they have, whatever they call it. I always want to see what they already have in place and how it could, let's say, inflict pain on certain team members. I just recently had a client, and one of this client's rules in the code of conduct is speak your mind, be honest. We offer psychological safety, so don't hold back with your opinion. And yes, I commend them for putting that on the list, and this is certainly important, but At no point ever have they considered that there are people on this planet who feel very, very uncomfortable with something like this. It's almost like an American traveling to Europe trying to enjoy the sauna and it says no clothing and you freak out. This is how people freak out about open and honest communication and speaking your mind in front of others. It's the same feeling. Same very unpleasant, deeply uncomfortable feeling. And once you understand that these people are not incompetent, shy, don't like to participate, are not good team players, before you come to those incorrect conclusions, make those incorrect assumptions, let's revisit what's on your code of conduct and how it might affect people. And I know this works when the first person says to me, but how could somebody not like saying what's on their mind? How could they hold back their opinion? If somebody told me not to speak my mind, I would be like a pot of water boiling and then exploding, like, how interesting. That's one side of the story. Here's another side of the story. And they don't believe it until I finally find someone who's actually willing to speak and say, this is how I feel about it. And it's almost torture for them, but the look on the face of people when they go like, seriously? This is how you feel? My God, this is priceless, because it finally clicks and they finally understand that there's nothing wrong with the other person. They just have different preferences, and they can be down to culture or personality.
Do you think people have got better, worse, or the same at being appreciative of, cultural differences, personality differences?
So, no, I don't think that has changed at all. There have always been people who are incredibly appreciative, and they follow you around like a teacher's pet, and they want to know so much more, and they're totally into it. And it's the same with intercultural training. They want another case study and go over another situation. And my God, this has helped me so much. And you've always had those people, and then you've always had those who are like, how can I get out of this? This is like a corporate requirement. Can you just pretend we had a session and log it in and never tell anyone, please? You get anything from the whole range hasn't changed. I think this is down to personality and what I would say necessity or urgency. Some people are very goal focused. I once worked with a team of salespeople, and they had to sell to clients outside their country, and they realized that doesn't work like at home. So they wanted to know, what do I have to say? How do I structure my conversation? And at what point can I make an attempt to close the deal, to sell? They wanted to sell. They wanted to increase the rate of closing deals. And I almost didn't take it because I said, I don't do that type of thing. I'm not a sales coach, and I didn't quite tell them that I despise this type of behavior, but I tried to sort of weasel my way out of this. But they really convinced me that it's not about selling, it's really about communication. And I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do. But for them, still, in the end, was not one of my favorite clients, to be honest. But in the end, it was really the most important thing at the end was, okay, we're closing more deals now. Okay, we're getting better feedback from our prospective clients and real clients. And so the training obviously did its job. So again, sometimes it has to be so measurable.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be monetized, the bottom line. So you come in, you train them, and we make more money. Is that how it works? Unfortunately, intercultural training and also language training is sometimes we find hard to measure. Yes, with language training, I can have you take a test. There are proficiency levels, the Common European Framework, like A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. You've probably heard of those.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can take a test, but do you know how many language lessons you need to take to move from A1 to A2? And a lot of people go like, okay, I've taken another month of language lessons. Can I take a test again? I might have moved up from A1 to A2. I said, no, you probably didn't, but go ahead, take the test. And it's the same with intercultural training. They think they're interculturalists after a 1-day workshop, when the next day they run into a situation and they don't even stop and think and process and reconsider. They still go in with their preconceptions, with their idea of what's normal, without second guessing the situation. And so I would say the training was not very successful. I think for a trainer, that is really, really difficult to not make it reflect negatively on you. You didn't deliver, but to kind of manage expectations from the get-go.
Hmm. I mean, is it difficult to sort of, I mean, it sounds, as you say, that all those intangibles, or not necessarily intangibles, but things that are more difficult to quantify,
Yeah,
is it difficult to, kind of prove, kind of ROI on intercultural training?
it is. And this is why large training providers, these are the sort of organizations in the global mobility, talent management space that we all know, that people like me work for as a subcontractor, you know, um, they are the ones who have to deal with the client and sell their products and justify that what they do shows a result. And from those large organizations I work for as a subcontractor, I know that they have developed a way of monitoring quality and getting feedback, a way of showing people that they did a good job. But it's terribly tough to do that. You probably need a larger scale, like a very high number of clients and the frequency of training, and you have to have been in business for maybe several years or decades, and you can show people this is our feedback over the past 10 years. And this is why everybody's so keen on getting feedback and sending out like post-training surveys and questionnaires, to the point where the clients say, leave me alone with that. I already said I liked it. But they call it full cycle feedback. But I think this is the only way to prove yourself that you've done a good job. But it's hard. It's terribly hard.
Absolutely.
It's
I'm curious, as a more advanced interculturalist yourself, we're talking to people who might need intercultural training, language training, might be undergoing that already, might be offering that. Some pretty experienced interculturalists in the audience. What do you do to stay fresh or sharp or continue growing? It's not as simple as turning on the, your SMART goal is probably not 10 sentences that you can repeat well, not fluently, well, next time you're in France. That's my goal. So what are you doing to continue to grow as an interculturalist?
Well, it starts with the daily work. I don't just see it as work, but I see it as an opportunity to learn from every client, every situation, how I handle it. That gives me an idea. There's area for improvement. There's room for improvement. I could do that better next time. I go do some research, some digging. I do extra preparation. I go in with the next client. I try what I thought might work better. I just self-evaluate on a continuous basis, because no matter what the client does in terms of his 1-star or 5-star feedback form at the end, let's say, way before that, during the entire conversation, I get a feeling of either this is fantastic, I'm loving it, I'm enjoying myself. Wow, 2 hours have gone by, I didn't even see how the time okay, yeah, this client is very happy. Or somebody who's constantly distracted, needs to answer the phone, says, can we skip ahead? I'm not really into this topic. And I go, okay, how can I engage someone like that more? I think I learn from every single interaction. That's one thing. That's probably the most important thing. Learning by doing, learning on the go. And this is probably how I got into all this in my early years, by living and working and traveling to different countries and just having to adapt as you go. Nobody's taking you by the hand and gives you feedback, but you have to survive and do this and that and manage to get something done. And I think this is still the most valuable training resource for myself, even now, checking myself, self reflection on how did this training go? How did the client react? How can I help them more? And what can I learn, or what are areas for improvement for me that could help the client even more? In addition to that, of course, I try to do professional development. I check out different courses online, different certificates, things that speak to me that could be useful. I like to be the student once in a while and just take a course. And at this point, of course, I have to say, I love Culture Chat. It is the greatest platform ever for teachers, trainers, coaches, people in the linguistic or intercultural space or training coaching space, where we have a safe platform where we can talk to each other, where we can learn from each other, where for less experienced people, they can try out things. One thing I absolutely have to mention here is, of course, I love Culture Chat. You know, I've been a member of Culture Chat from its initiation back in, was it 2020?
It was. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's been going on for 6 years, and there was never been a dull moment. I think it's such a warm, comforting, safe space. I mean, what we preach about psychological safety and feeling belonging, I think Culture Chat is exactly that place. At least it's for me. And the high number of participants speaks to it. It speaks volumes that a lot of people feel drawn to it. They feel like I'm not alone. There are other people like me, and I love to hear what they got to say. And I can ask questions, or I can listen to other interculturalists. I get new ideas. So to me, this is a space of belonging, but also a space of learning. I always learn new things, get new ideas, feel inspired to consider things that I haven't considered before. And I think platforms like that, groups, professional groups that make you think, consider, reevaluate, self-reflect, are super important for teachers, trainers, and coaches.
Appreciate your kind words regarding the Culture Chat there.
You know, I'm one of your biggest fans.
As you mentioned, I think, as you say, I think this is an industry where you do work as a solopreneur and an independent contractor a lot of that time. So, of course, it's again, how do you get that feeling of, say, learning with others yourself? So, as we all try and find these avenues to improve our skills. One thing I just ask is, how did your kind of own transition go when you personally, kind of relocated from Germany to the US? Was that easy? Did you feel supported? Did you feel you wasn't supported enough? Do you still reflect on that, or is it all a long distant memory?
Well, I still do reflect on it, and I reflect on many of my relocations actually, starting with my childhood, early, like teenage years, young adult years, where I traveled a lot and temporarily moved around different European countries. I was born in Germany, but I spent a lot of time in other European countries, a considerable amount of time in the UK. Um, and then as an adult, I used to live and work or just traveled for work to, again, many different European countries. That's why I would always put Germany, the UK, Italy, France, and Switzerland on my top list of countries that I know very well. I mean, I've been to every single European country, I believe, and I've had a client from every single one of those countries, at least, not just one, maybe at least 10 or so. So I do have an in-depth understanding of those cultures, and that's always made it easy for me to transition, moving from Germany to Italy, moving from Italy back, moving to the UK and moving back, working in Switzerland, working in France and back. It was a constant back and forth. And I actually didn't move from Germany to the US. I was living in the UK at the time, so I moved from the UK to the US. According to Erin Mayer, one of the most difficult transitions, isn't it? Like she likes to put it, because you don't expect difference and difficulty. You're like, yeah, it's just another English speaking country. And now I could say something that would really upset the Americans about the connection of British Empire and the new colonies and what it turned into. sure, we don't want to talk about it. Since Independence Day is our favorite holiday over here, isn't it? So you think it comes easy, but it doesn't. And while I felt very comfortable in Europe, feeling like, oh, I can go to any country. Oh, I will switch. I'm so comfortable here. I'm like a chameleon in Europe. I can change colors instantly. And then I moved to the US and I felt like a fish out of water. I think this was the first transition that felt different. Whereas in Europe, it felt like, yeah, it's just another country. Oh, yeah, I'll manage. Oh, yeah, I'll learn this. I'll do that. Oh, yeah, I get it. And all of a sudden, I was so far away from what I was comfortable with, from what I knew, and even far, far away from the type of English that I spoke and that I understood at the time, to the point where my first idea was, oh, I could work for a language school, just for starters, before I started my own business. And I walked into that language school and I applied and had all my certificates and I'm a certified English teacher. I have a CELTA, whole gambit, whole 9 yards. Started talking to the director there and she said, Renata, this is a language school in the United States. We don't teach British English here, but you can teach German if you want to. And I'm like, what? What did you just say? And so I really think that transition from the UK to the US was more significant and more different than any other relocation I've done before in Europe.
Are the languages getting closer together or further apart in terms of English, and American English?
I've noticed a tendency of, let's call it, global English, and it's very well spoken and very well understood by non-native speakers until a native speaker enters the room and believes that their version of English is the original one. And so I think there's a version of English that we could all speak. And as an English language teacher, I always try to speak very clearly, concisely, and not try to use, cultural reference and all those type of things. I sometimes fail miserably, I know, but I try. But that's something that has developed. There's a sort of understanding that anything international, any either global political meeting or summit or business meeting or a tourist traveling somewhere, that if we don't speak the local language, let's try in English. And everybody's sort of expected to know at least a few things, even if you're in the most remote tourist destination in Cambodia. You say, you, English? They might say, little. And then you do whatever you want to do. You ask a direction, you buy food. You will probably succeed with a vocabulary of 20 words. And that's the type of English that has been very successful globally and that is spoken and understood very well. And I think at some point, as a native speaker of English, we have to abandon our expectations of superiority, accuracy, and how original English actually sounds like, because you can put 10 different native speakers of English in one room and they will not understand each other, I guarantee.
I think that's I think that's
Watch the Graham
fitting...
Norton show. There's a couple of really great episodes about him inviting VIPs and movie stars from like New Zealand, Australia, Scotland, Southern England, Canada, the US, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. Funny conversation.
No, that's excellent, Renata. So if people wanted to learn more about you, where should they go?
Well, I have my own website. Easy enough if you know my name. So it's Renata Urban Training. You put those 3 words together, no dots, just renataurbantraining.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Again, it's Renata Urban Training. That's also my LinkedIn handle. And I have a YouTube channel. And guess what? It's youtube.com/Renata Urban Training. It's always the same. So I'm pretty easy
getting back
to
to all
find.
that communication marketing training you had has paid dividends, isn't it? Keeping it all
Keep it simple,
concise and unilateral. That's been great. We'll also put the obviously links to things in the bio and that for this episode as well.
Well, I think we've covered an enormous lot of things today.
We've covered a lot of mileage.
If there's anything people should take away from this, I guess, is to keep an open mind, to keep exploring, I'm often being asked what is intercultural competence, and yes, I can talk a lot about self-awareness, awareness of others, do your studies, do your gap analysis, but I think the most important thing about it is to open yourself up, to develop a sense of adventure, to replace fear with curiosity. I think those who venture out in an almost naive, childish way of like, oh, well, what is this? What you call this? Can I try it? People who feel that way usually have a much easier life across cultures because they dare ask. They still show respect, but want to understand, are naturally aware that they don't have to change who they are. They just need to be more tolerant to when things are different. And I think once we embrace that, we have a much easier time.
No, great.
I think we've just found a good episode title for this one, Dare to Cross Cultures.
Yes, why not? With curiosity, add with curiosity. I think that is
Dare to cross cultures with curiosity.
Yes, such an important word.
No, very good.
Love it.
Right.
Thank you, Renata. Thank you so much.
Great. Yeah, no, great to speak with you today.
Okay. Well then, thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.